Welcome to Kingdom Business Talk. I'm Ricky Trinidad, your host, and today we are at Newcastle, at downtown Newcastle in City Hall with Mayor Mark Elisco. And what a privilege it is to be here today. You know, Kingdom Business Talk is all about revitalizing the city of Newcastle. We have a new mayor who loves the city, who just came into office, who's ready to really transform this area. And what an exciting time. We're going to look back at this a few months from now, a few years from now, and really see the changes that we're doing. It's always a great thing when real estate developers, community residents, business leaders come together with the local leaders
Sure.
that have this similar passion, similar vision. So we're excited right now to get to know Mayor Mark Elisco personally, professionally. So there's no script here. We're just going to have a discussion. And I'd like to start. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Well, I love this stuff. Whenever I have an opportunity to speak to people, I welcome that. Since I've been here for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it's been nonstop, right? For a lot of the good things that are happening. And as we do this, there's could be any time that we can be interrupted. Somebody could walk in because that's just the nature of this office right now. I mean, it's been constant. I've been criticized by my council members because I haven't given them all the information that happens constantly. So I have to do a better job of informing council on the different potential things that are coming up, as well as what you are. I'm so happy to hear about your development in Laurel that's finally getting off the ground.
Yes.
That's a great thing because, as you all know, even though I believe Newcastle is the engine of Lawrence County, we're all connected.
Right.
And what's good in Laurel is good for Newcastle. What's good for Newcastle is good in Laurel.
Agreed.
So when I went out there to see what you guys do, I was very impressed.
Yes.
So that's why I'm here. I'm going to try to talk you into coming here. Let's go.
Well, I appreciate that. And thank you so much. Well, for those of you who don't know, Metro Vitalization is my company, and we're a new real estate developer in town. And the Laurel project that the mayor mentioned is our Kingdom Place development. That is just now going on the market. The subdivision was just recorded in the county, in Lawrence County, and it's 24 new construction homes. There hasn't been a new development in this area, so we're privileged to be able to bring quality homes for families. Visit us at kingdomplacehomes.com. And thank you so much for your support and for mentioning that. I want to start getting to know you as a person. Where did you grow up? How was your just living in Newcastle, and just tell us a little bit. These are things that local residents and most people don't know about you. They see you on TV, they hear about you, they read about you in the paper. But we'd like to first, before we get into your vision and your plan for the city, get to know you as a person a little bit.
I am obviously I'm a lifelong resident of Newcastle. I grew up in an Italian home. My parents were born in Italy. Carmela Maria Cayaz Elisco, I always loved saying that, was my mother, and my father was Anthony Joseph Elisco. My brother and I, Dennis, he's the attorney here. We grew up on the east side of Newcastle in a neighborhood that was full of kids. So we learned our education on the hard knocks of the streets of the east side, but it was a beneficial growing up. I loved it. But all we were involved in was sports. That's all there was. We're talking about the 60s. So, we played sports the whole time, whatever it was baseball, football, basketball, whatever it was, we played sports constantly. So I grew up and my father really was a proponent of that. So I grew up in a very athletic area, but it drove me competitively. I'm a firm believer in athletics because it develops you. It develops you by discipline. It develops you by a stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah.
And I think those are very, very important ingredients. And I think that's what I bring to this office. It's like a never quit attitude. You have to believe.
Yes.
You have to believe. In my personal life, I just got married over a year ago to a lovely young lady named Janet Foley Elisco.
Congratulations.
Yeah, at 67 years old.
Beautiful.
I was never married before.
Yes, never too late.
Yeah, never too late. Never too late. And she's probably more passionate about this community and gives me an earful every night about what's going on in the city.
Yes.
She's a little bit more radical than I
Mhm.
am, but her heart's in the right place. But she kind of stays in the background more so. But she's very passionate about this community. Without her support, I probably couldn't have done this. I ran for mayor 2 other times, and I lost. One time I lost by 27 votes. And this past 4 years ago, Mr. Fry defeated me in a general election. He put together a wonderful campaign. We always agitate each other about it.
Right.
Uh,
It's healthy competition.
it's healthy competition. Chris also had an athletic background, and prior to us in the primary election, we met. This was 4 years ago, and we kind of knew that it was going to be him and me. And we made a pledge to each other that we're going to go after each other to win the campaign, but nothing will be personal. And we kept to that honor. We kept to it. There were times when we really went at each other, Chris and I. I could still, we laugh about this. We hear a lot of sirens.
Yeah. Newcastle's finest.
Yeah.
Right?
So we went to, we had a very intense debate in front of 200-300 people at the confluence. And this was about 6 weeks before the election. I mean, we went at each other. And interesting enough, the people, we had both people on our side, and they're jeering and cheering and jeering, and it looked like we didn't like each other. When it was over, we went down Patsy's, had wings and beers together.
That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
We always laugh about that. Yeah. And now we're working together, and we have the same common interests to bring this community together. We're excited about it. I shouldn't say that it's all clear selling. There's a lot of red tape.
Right.
There's a lot of, at times, controversy.
Right.
That we try to get through.
Yes.
But like Chris and I, we never held it personal.
Right.
And I can tell you that in the 5 weeks, at times at council, we have heated discussions, but it's not personal.
That's how you grow.
That's how you grow.
That's how you get smarter.
Yeah. As a businessman, I'm sure that you have some heated discussions with your partners.
Yes.
You do.
Yeah.
But at the end, the common interest and the common ground is there.
Right.
And you have your differences in how to get there.
Yes.
And when you recognize that, you can be successful in business, and we can be successful as a city government.
I agree 100%. Now, I want to share some commonalities just from here. By the way, we didn't grow up together. We're just meeting. From the moment I met you, I can tell that we have a kindred spirit. And now I see where that's coming from. My parents are from Dominican Republic. I was born in New York. I grew up in Chicago.
Right.
So I'm not Italian, but my parents were immigrants into this country. And that's a little bit different, because your parents are grounded in different roots than if they had been born and raised here in the United States.
I agree.
They have different principles. Your passion for athleticism, I mean, that builds character.
It does.
It gives you a different type of motivation. Your love for your newly found wife, or your wife and your new marriage. I'm very close to my wife, and really our wives are the power behind the throne.
Well, there's no question.
Yeah, and her input in your life, I'm sure, is very similar to mine. So what a pleasure it is to get to know a little bit more about you. Now let's talk about the politics part of it.
Yeah.
You didn't walk into this with a silver platter handed to you, everything's perfect. Like you said, this is like a clearinghouse. You walked into a war zone, basically a battlefield where things need to be fixed. And that makes it more exciting. But tell me a little bit more about your perspective of the landscape of the politics here in the city of Newcastle. And then we'll go into your vision and your thoughts on how to make things better.
That's a very insightful question. I appreciate that question. I have to tell you this, when you campaign, you're on the outside looking in and you think it's easy. It's not. And this position as mayor is earmarked to be part-time. You can't do this position part-time. I'm going to present to council at the end of this year. This is not a part-time job. For it to be effective, it's got to be a full-time job.
Especially not where it's going. Also.
Yes, it is constant, and believe me, I'm not complaining. I signed up for this. I did, and I relish what's happening here. But there is politics involved. You cut through the red tape. You argue and you kick. I even give you a hint. I mean, tonight's council meeting may be a little heated, but that doesn't mean I don't love these guys. I do. I admire, I've said this, I admire anybody who puts their name on the ballot because you're opening yourselves up for criticism.
Right.
You yourself as a businessman, when you say, hey, I want to do this, people say, Ricky Trinidad ain't going to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We set ourselves up for criticism. Leaders get criticized. And if you can't take that criticism, you shouldn't be in this arena.
I agree.
That's it. So, but that's like it's water that runs off a duck. Same way for me.
Well, it makes you stronger. I welcome it because you can say whatever you want. It's a motivating factor that helps you move things forward.
No
okay,
doubt.
You think this, you're entitled to your own opinion. Now let's see what happened.
Right.
Let's see what God does. Let's see what this, the trend here, what
Right.
I'm doing. Let's see if it comes to fruition. And then this isn't to silence your critics. It's just because you have your path.
Ricky, as you all know, businessmen, guys in office, athletes, they're competitive people. You tell us we can't do something, sit around, you watch. I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do.
That's exactly right.
And that's the definition of integrity. Do what you say you're going to do.
And you didn't really fail the last two times. You really just kept going because here's the victory. You are in office. You are the mayor of the city. It's just part of your training and what you took. And the one thing nobody can criticize you for is that you kept going, you keep moving, you keep pushing your vision forward. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about your vision a little bit. Now we're going to interject a few clips here as we talk about the city of Newcastle, the mayor's vision and what he wants to see. So we're going to plug in a few clips of the city. There's a beauty in this city that's astounding to me. I just came back from Greenville, South Carolina. I took some drone shots and some GoPro shots. And the similarity, of course, that city is already beautified.
It is.
They did a great job. The mayor there and the planning department, the urban planners there, the developers that came in. There's a creek that runs through that city, and they just beautified it. They did a boardwalk on both sides. You have condos, restaurants, just a beautiful thing. Now, when I compare it to our city, and we're going to see some of those clips now, I see the potential of what can happen along that creek. And I applaud you for the demolition that's happening right now. And one of the major, I would say, eyesores has just been vacant for a long time, and how that's going to come down. What do you see? And we're going to show some clips of that building as well. How do you see the city transforming along the river in the core of the central business district? How do you see that evolving?
The answer to your question is quite politically incorrect.
Okay.
And let me share it with you. Because I'm a transparent guy.
Okay.
I say what I feel.
Speak your heart.
And I know what economic development is. I've read enough on economic development, especially for third-class cities that are coming out of Act 47. Now, one of your biggest attributes are your river areas. It's not a river, we have a creek, but it's wide enough that we can say it's a riverside. And you have to develop those areas. Yes. Unfortunately, on our riverside, we have, and I know how horrible this sounds. We have the city rescue mission. It shouldn't be there. Shouldn't be there. And I know I'll get criticized by this, but I would love to move it. I would love for them to move because we can develop that.
I would like to just kind of interject something, make it a little bit more politically correct on my side. Find them a better place.
Find them
that's a higher quality.
I want to find them a better place. And believe me, I've said that. You're exactly right. And it's not that I don't have compassion. I have as much compassion as anybody else. But if you're asking me, is that the place for it? I'm going to tell you absolutely not. Mm-hmm. Okay. The same thing is we have a housing development there as well, up more near where the old days in there. Should it be there? Absolutely not. And I could find a alternate spot that is close, that is better equipped for that.
New construction, new development, higher quality, no mold, bigger windows.
Absolutely. And then we can develop our riverside. And again, I understand the need for it. I do. And I have the compassion as well. But if you're asking me if that's where those places should be, I'm going to tell you categorically, no, shouldn't be. So, in the 4 years I'm here, I'm going to try to make a move for them into a better place. Because we need to develop that area. We're a very marketable area.
You remind me of one of my favorite mayors, Mayor Daley, city of Chicago, former Mayor Daley, and he was highly criticized as well. And there is a location in downtown that's a key location that they were using. In that case, it wasn't dilapidated areas. They're using it as an airport for the elite that shouldn't be there, especially after 9/11 and things like that. So it just shouldn't be in the downtown area. And he couldn't get the people to agree with him. And I'll just say, he went through some non-conventional methods of converting it to what it is today, which is beautiful. And it's the best thing for the city. And nobody developed that city better than Mayor Daley. He just did an excellent job back then. And you remind me of him because you're not afraid of criticism. You're bold. You're forthright. You know this is not an authoritative way. It's still a democratic process, but you're bold enough to say this is what it should be. And I think other people may be fearful of what the public might say. And when you know what's right, you may be criticized for it. You have to go for it. And you have this incredible vision. And honestly, I'm as non-political as they get, non-partisan. I just want to put I want the best person to be in office. And really, for meeting you and getting to know you a little bit, and as we get to know each other better, I believe you're the best person to be sitting in this seat as mayor of the city. So I'm looking forward to that.
And I appreciate that you say that. And yes, it is hard to say what I just said because you do have compassion. But I'm a history guy. I've taught history. I'm into history. There's a great book, and I always said every political leader should read it. It was written by John F. Kennedy, called Profiles in Courage. Sometimes you have to do the unpopular thing that is the right thing. That's right. And it's the Bible for people who aspire to political office.
And you have to be careful with that, right? You do it as politically correct as possible, but continue on the agenda of what's right.
Absolutely. And and we have some prime real estate areas there. We just had a meeting with Rick Vistak. And obviously there was an article in today's paper, and it didn't sound real good. Obviously, there was a lot of confrontation. He owns the Days Inn, which is right on the riverside. Most valuable piece of property.
Yeah.
So, and then after that meeting, I brought Rick in here, and I think we can reach common ground with him, because his vision is to be successful there, and our vision is for him to be successful there. So we have to find common ground. Right. So we still have a long way to go there, but nevertheless, as I spoke with Mr. Fry after Mr. Vistak left, there is light at the end of that tunnel.
Yes.
We can pursue that light.
Well, you mentioned Mr. Vistak, and this can't be done by yourself. It's a public and private collaboration. And some people don't know this about me. I write articles. In fact, there's an article that's about to come out in Forbes magazine that I wrote. It'll be out in the next couple of weeks. And it's called Public-Private Collaboration. And it's all about mayors, city council members working with members of the community, like Mr. Vistak, like myself, a real estate developer, like pastors that we know in the area. Dr. Apostle Mark Kaufman has a vision and some development that he wants to do that I want to participate. I am participating.
Speak with him quite a bit.
Yes. So it's the city working with the residents and business leaders and real estate developers coming together. How do you see, has the city done many public-private collaboration efforts?
We have in the past, yes.
Yeah.
But recently, I have to say this, our city has been taken by unscrupulous investors. What they do is, for instance, about 5 years ago, the St. Francis project, St. Francis Hospital. When I wasn't in office then, but I was going to run. And I begged the city, and I did some research on the possible investor, and I begged the city not to make the deal. And they did. Unfortunately, the condition of St. Francis, and what some of these investors do is that they take that property like that, and like St. Francis, and they buy it at a very low valuation, but the assessed value is greater. So they expand their real estate portfolio and they leverage that with loans. Meanwhile, we're caught holding the back. We got an empty, debilitated building.
Right.
So, we have to be very careful. If you read anything on distressed cities coming out of Act 47, sometimes they get desperate and make any deal. That's a mistake. You can't get desperate and make any deal.
Right.
Because you could be taken. So as I propose to you as a potential investor in our community, and I've read your paper on metro vitalization for Newcastle, and it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Tell me what you could do for us.
Yes.
And we could do for you.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Well, right now, Metro Vitalization is developing the first project, the Kingdom Place Homes. We closed on that 30-acre property last June. And
So we're talking about in Laurel, correct?
in Laurel.
Yes.
So that's our first development. Our second development is trailing right behind. It's about a 100-acre property in Union Township that has 200 plus single family homes. We're about to go in for approvals now. We closed on that one in September. So that one's in Union Township, and it has a new tourism component. It's an RV resort.
I read that.
Called Royalty Camping. You can go to royaltycamping.com. Very innovative and a great location that'll bring tourists to the area and help the economy of the general area. These are on the outskirts of the downtown area.
Correct.
Now, I'm an urban developer. My background is a master's in urban planning from the University of Illinois at Chicago. My background is in urban development. I'm really an infill, new construction, city improving developer.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working, my company is working its way into Newcastle. We have an exciting development that I've mentioned to you briefly, and I presented to the former city council called Preeminence, right in the heart of downtown Newcastle. That will be a public-private collaboration, hopefully. And the way we can work together to answer the question, my wife says I talk too much. I circle the question too much. So to go right to it,
but go ahead. Once you're always critical of us, but go ahead.
Okay, thank you. To go right to the heart of the answering your question, what can we do for you and how can we work together? That would be the first development, I think, in downtown Newcastle. It's 200 plus brand new homes. We're going to draw families from the surrounding areas, including families in Newcastle, with a 5-story building that's mixed use, kind of mixed income. I don't believe that Newcastle, and I'll be bold enough to say that I don't believe Newcastle needs more low-income housing.
No, absolutely not.
You should be able to afford where you live, but there's plenty of affordable housing in the area. This is market rate, blue collar, a little bit of deluxe. So it's mixed income from that area. We may even throw some luxury in there. Rooftop terrace overseeing that river, a rooftop garden area, commercial on the first floor as it should be in downtown. Just a beautiful development. And if you want to, well, we haven't acquired the property yet. That's where the public-private collaboration part. But one thing I would commit to you is that we won't be a land banker. The only thing holding us back right now in Hickory Township is permits. The NPDES permit from the DEP, the Department of Environmental Protection. Once we get that, we have our equipment. We're ready to put in our streets, sidewalks, and develop those homes. In fact, the first modular home is sitting in this beautiful home. It's going to be the model home. It's sitting there ready to be installed. So we had the opposite problem of these investors that you said that come into town, hold the property, get a loan against it, use the money, and they don't develop the property, and the city stays stagnant the way it is.
Sure.
Our problem is different. We acquire the property. Both of my projects are funded and ready to go. Our issue is really the public getting us our permits quickly so we can develop these high quality homes and businesses,
right,
and business establishments.
Yeah, sometimes government, there's so much bureaucratic red tape that it stands in its own way.
Right.
It does. I've experienced that here. And we try to cut through that red tape.
Yes, the downtown buildings that we're looking at, one is the parking garage that's there, the old Merrick building, and the old Rite Aid building. And it's really our development.
Oh, you mean any one of those three, you're saying?
No, all three together. So this development would actually connect all three buildings. And if somebody has a plan for it, we would work with them. So this is a collaboration.
Are you talking about demoing the parking garage possibly?
No, actually enhancing the parking garage, beautifying it and enhancing it structurally and keeping that in place. Because you're going to need parking.
I was going to say the parking,
yes.
Sure.
And connecting it to both mixed use at this time, 5-story buildings that we've preliminarily designed, they would all be connected and form, let's say, one structure for all. So if you're a resident and you're coming home, you would park in the parking garage, cross over a bridge, a pedestrian bridge that's private and secure, and go into the residential area. If you're a commercial tenant or a guest to a commercial establishment, you would park at the parking garage and walk out. It's all part of the development. So it would connect all three. It's called preeminence. You can actually see the preliminary at a webpage that I'm going to reveal now with your permission. It's preeminencepa.com. And the password is God is love with a capital G. So if you want to take a glimpse of what we're proposing, we're going to formally propose it now to City Council and to yourself. And that would be an excellent public-private collaboration effort between us that with the city's support, we can make that happen for Newcastle. And I think you and I would both agree, Newcastle needs something like that.
Sure, absolutely. I'm all for that type of investment. After the first Mayor building comes down, I believe it'll still be in repository, that property there. And we could probably gain it. And I'd have to figure out what that process is. But there's actually three components to this. One is there's a move for green space.
Right.
Okay. The second one, Paul Lynch is the chairperson for Human Services. They bought the old library in and they're renovating, and they're going to put about 53 to 60 people in there.
Okay.
So he would like that property for parking. And then there's your position as well.
Right.
Of the three, we'd probably make more tax dollars from you than anybody else. And I'm all about making money. Although I'm the mayor, I'm also a businessman. I owned a couple of businesses.
Well, and we can accommodate the other two as well. So Mr. Lynch's need for parking, we can accommodate that within our development and just give it to him and actually develop it for him. So he doesn't have to pay for it. And then in terms of the green space, we can incorporate that. And by the way, the rooftop would be a green rooftop,
which is pretty cool,
unique and different in this area. But also at the ground level, we can do some streetscaping and also pocket park within it, which is part of our plan. I also want to talk to you. Now we're getting into the business.
I want you to know what our timetable could be. After that comes down, which is supposed to be pretty soon here. What we can do is, obviously, Mr. Lynch called me. He wants to meet council on the possible that development, and obviously, we'll put you also in there. You can meet with council, talk about your development as well.
I appreciate it.
And that's the way forward. Get a consensus of council and see the direction that they want to go.
I agree. And this is interesting because the conversation took the turn of business. This was a get to know your mayor, but thank you for discussing that with us. That is a development that after this podcast, I'm going to talk to you about and kind of present it to you first and then set up a time to present it to council.
Yes.
So that is, but it's exciting for the city of Newcastle. Now, this is Kingdom Business Talk. This is spiritually grounded. We look at enhancing the city physically, aesthetically, environmentally, economically, but from my perspective, also spiritually. So I'm going to ask the question, do you pray? Do you believe in God? I think people would like to know that, especially viewers on my podcast. Is this a man who believes in God, who prays, or has, I had a gentleman here before that wasn't a strong believer, but said, I know there's something. You know, I believe in the spirit.
Oh, you're personal now, don't you?
Share your insight on that. Is there a force of good out there? What do you pray? What are your thoughts on the spiritual aspect of it?
Well, do I believe that there's a spiritual intact every human being? I do. I'm a student of history. I am. I've studied religions my whole life. Wow. I went to Youngstown State for 9 years. Most of it was studying on history and if you're asking me if I'm a religious person, no. Do I believe in a higher good? That answer would be yes, I do. I don't believe that normal men have figured out what the possible creator has in mind. We're at a very low level of consciousness, I believe, as human beings. We can't even conceive of if there is a creator, what he thinks or what it is.
Right.
I think that's a realistic approach. By that, are you asking me, do I have an internal a clock that tells me that there's something bigger and greater than us? I would tell you yes. Do I think man has figured that out? I would tell you no.
I think that's a really good that's a really good kind of philosophy. It's a great way of viewing life, and sometimes we call things differently. Like some people say, well, drug addiction, you have to treat it. It's a social dilemma. I call it a spiritual problem. We're talking about the same thing.
Right.
Homelessness, you might say, well, that's a social. I think it's spiritual. Call it social. We're calling two things. There's definitely good and evil, and I agree with you 100%.
Wow.
Nobody has figured out God.
Nobody.
Nobody
And the evidence is everywhere. Today in this world today, there are over 3,000 different religions. Over 3,000. What does that tell you? Not everybody, and everyone claims that they have the right one.
Right.
Everyone.
Yeah.
You know, the Roman Catholics believe that Jesus Christ flew up into heaven, and billions of people believe that, and that's fine.
Right.
But there are billions and billions of people believe, the Muslims, that the Prophet Muhammad flew up to heaven in a winged horse.
Right.
Okay. Now, if we're laughing at that, but billions believe that.
Billions.
So the issue is, and I'm not disparaging either one. I wouldn't want anybody to think I am. I'm not. All I'm saying is that is evidence that we haven't really figured it out.
Right.
It is.
Right.
And if you go through history, there are millions of beliefs, religions, and thoughts.
Right.
None of them unique.
Right. I agree.
So, and you know, John Lennon sings that without religion, a lot of people would still be alive today.
Right.
Yeah. So think about that.
Yeah.
So
A lot of wars happen because
a lot of wars. And I don't believe morality is monopolized by religion. I think morality comes with being a human being.
Right.
Compassion for one another.
Mm.
And that's what drives me. And if that is a light that I follow, and I think it's the right path for me.
I think the beautiful that's very well said, and that's the beautiful thing of our wonderful country, best country in the world, that freedom of religion. You can, you know, in my opinion, if you're a strong believer, pursue God, pursue Him according to the Bible, follow Him, and that's what I am. I have Bible studies in my office. I've had Muslim guys working for me. We pray to, you know, they come to my Bible studies. If you're a person who believes that there could be something out there, I don't understand it, I seek Him, and you're going towards that force of good. One thing nobody can deny: there's good and there's evil. You know, pursue God, higher power, the power of good, whatever you want to call it, on your own. But that's what this is about. We're not only going to have Christian people on this channel. I'm not only going to work with people who are Christian. You know, Jesus didn't come only for the Christians. He came for the world, and His force of good has created hospitals and giving to children. And yes, there's been wars in the name of religion, but then also a lot of good things.
Sure.
And I say, pursue Him.
You know, what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say.
No, you can say that.
Well, two things. You know, yes, there's been wars and horrible abuses due to religion, and there's good things. You know, the Nazis used to say that too. Yeah, we committed some real atrocities, but we got good things in mind.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I'm not comparing.
No,
I'm just making a historical comparison.
You could take anything and use it for good or evil.
There's no question. But the question is not, are you Christian, are you Muslim? That's not the question to another human being. The question is, are you good? That's the question. And that's where I fall on. You know, it's really interesting because when I was growing up, and I have lifelong friends that I've kept friends with me since we were 8 years old. And it's funny because they were all radical, and I was the conservative guy going to baseball practice all the time, and I would never drink or smoke, and I never did any of those things. And they were very radical, you know, that they would experience and everything. Today, they are so deeply religious and going to church every day, and they say, come on, you have to come with us. And I appreciate it. I do. I have a lot of respect and admiration for it. And I say, geez, oh man, things have changed. Now I'm the bad guy. What happened, guys? You know?
Well, you know, that's everybody's different. everybody has. I appreciate your perspective also with the example that you gave of Chris Fry, who won the mayoral race in the past, and you guys went out and you still became friends. And
Sure.
you know, I appreciate your perspective, the inner light, the power of good, your desire to pursue that. And you know, that's we're all different. Everybody knows my perspective. I believe in the Bible. I follow Jesus. I believe
That's
the
good.
soul is the word. I believe
good
it,
stuff.
and we work together.
Yeah.
Either way, we're not trying to find. I think it's the opposite of what people think. Is find people that look like you, that act like you, that are even
Forget
the
about
same political background, the same racial background. The power and the force is when you can work with people like you did with Chris Fry, and now he's the city administrator, you're the mayor. And I think that's
We're joined it to
and
him.
it's a perfect fit. Imagine if you said, well, he doesn't look like me, he was my opposing, I'll never work with him.
Yeah, right.
You wouldn't have this benefit.
No, he wouldn't.
So I really appreciate your insight.
Well, you know, it's interesting that, you know, you talk about the Bible and Christian beliefs. And believe me, I respect that and I admire that, and I would never criticize it, never. But the thing that joins us is the common ground that I always look for: goodness. That's it. I really believe that you have the best interest in our community, and I appreciate that. You're not from here, and I welcome guys like you. I do, because we have common ground. We want to better the city, and we want to do it, and we want to do it through good, legitimate means.
I agree.
That's the only thing that's important.
And there's a common ground we have. It's actually a biblical scripture. It says, overcome evil with good. You're talking about goodness.
Goodness.
It's
That's
a
it.
bottom line principle of life. You know, unite with people that are like-minded and like-hearted in that way.
Mhm.
So we really appreciate you coming on to this podcast.
Right.
You know, I'm praying that that everything that you have desired for the city, your vision, your plans will come to fruition. In any way I can support it, I will, because I'm behind you
I
100%.
appreciate that. And we'll be behind you too. And I look forward to you coming to council and talk about your vision as well. And you know that you'll have an ally there for me.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick.
I really
Talking to
appreciate
you,
it.
buddy.
This one went a little bit long, but it's worth it. Thank you, our followers of this podcast, for joining us today. And what a pleasure it is to meet Mayor Mark Elisco here in Newcastle. And come again next week on Kingdom Business Talk.
Great, great.